15 years ago, you made a big bet with Gavi. How do you think that's paid off?
Well, the work the foundation has done in vaccines through Gavi has been the most important thing we've done. The very creation of the foundation came about because we saw this great inequity, and we gave early grants in vaccines, but then saw there was something missing. And so several people working in global health, including the foundation, decided that starting something to buy vaccines for the world's poorest children was absolutely needed. And in the year 2000, that was announced as Gavi. And so now we've had 15 years of incredible success, getting people to make new vaccines for poor world diseases, getting the prices down for those, getting them introduced and delivered. And that's why we've saved millions of lives. And every time people look at aid money and say, what's the most impactful thing they can find in that whole space, Gavi gets ranked at the very top.
So as Gavi enters this new phase of massive scaling up, what sort of impact do you think that's going to have on childhood mortality and poverty?
Well, Gavi did a fantastic job in its first 15 years, particularly getting the pentavalent vaccine out to all the world's children. And it started getting the most important diarrheal vaccine, rotavirus, and the most important respiratory disease, pneumococcus, out to children. Diarrhea and pneumonia are the two biggest killers of children. And in this next 5-year phase, we'll actually finish the rollout of both rotavirus and pneumococcus to all the world's children. And so it's a phenomenal thing. It'll be the largest single contribution to reducing childhood death. Over the last 25 years, childhood death was cut in half. The hope is in this next 15 years, we can cut it in half again. And the biggest part, again, will be getting these new vaccines out to the poorest children.
You mentioned new vaccines. What about diseases, the most important diseases? In terms of vaccines, what are going to be the most important diseases in the next 5 years?
Well, the biggest diseases are diarrhea, pneumonia, and malaria. And it's phenomenal that we have these highly effective vaccine for diarrhea, a highly effective vaccine for pneumonia. Typically, it would have taken 30 years between when those are used in the rich world and when those are used in the developing world, which is ironic because the risk of death is over 10 times greater in the developing world, where the child's nutrition and immune system is not as strong, and the ability to seek medical care is far weaker. And what we've done here is we've taken that delay and basically gotten rid of it, said that, hey, these things ought to get out to poor children as soon as they get out to rich children. And we've had to make sure that the vaccine is targeted to the particular strains that exist in the developing countries. And that's required a new way of working with manufacturers, a new way of working with the countries, trying to anticipate the supply, the demand, fixing the cold chain, the overall management of the vaccine delivery system. So we've come a long ways in the last 15 years, but finishing these two new vaccines will be our most important thing. We'll have other new vaccines that we'll be putting into the mix, like HPV, which is for cervical cancer. There's a first-generation malaria vaccine that will get some coverage. There's a vaccine for polio that is part of that eradication that needs to be put into routine immunization. So we'll have a lot to do. One of the big focuses will be making sure the coverage levels get even higher.
You mentioned HPV. What sort of role do you think Gavi will play in improving women's health?
Well, HPV is a great example of why we need Gavi. HPV is a vaccine now available in basically every rich country. And girls have the option of getting that vaccine. And it's fantastic. It means they don't get cervical cancer. Now, in rich countries, you can usually spot it and take care of it. But in fact, if you get this HPV, the virus, in a developing country, the chance that it'll be stopped is almost zero. And so you'll get cervical cancer, and a lot of those women will die. And so HPV really belongs in the developing countries. And so now the work's being done to get the price down, to get the volume up, to make sure the strains are right, to get the vaccine systems in each of these countries able to add this. This one is a bit tricky because instead of giving it in the normal EPI schedule, 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 14 weeks, 6 months, where we give all the other vaccines, this one has been tested only to give at school-age children. And so we have to set up a new delivery system and make sure that has very good coverage. And that is a key project for this next 5 years. That's our most important introduction for the next 5 years.
Now, also, Gavi is about to enter into a new phase with a large number of countries graduating. What do you see as being the big challenges during that phase?
Well, it's great news that the Gavi recipient countries are increasing their GDP per person. In some ways, that's what this is all about, is that as you improve the health of a country, then those kids are productive, they're fully developed, they can be educated, and we want every country to be self-sufficient. And that's happened in countries like South Korea and Mexico, and many countries now are middle-income countries. And so we celebrate the fact that many of these Gavi recipients, like Indonesia, are growing their economy. Now they have to plan ahead, though, because over a period of years, they have to take on the extra cost of the vaccine. And unless they're very smart about that, they won't have the money there. And it's critical that we preserve this coverage. We've made sure they still get the low prices that we've negotiated, but instead of Gavi paying for basically all of it, over the years it shifts where they take on most of that burden. So we've been sitting down with the Ministry of Finance in these countries talking about that 5-year period, and there's some of these countries that are dependent on commodities, including oil, where their future revenues are a bit unclear, and the other donors at this same time, like eligibility for concessional loans, is going away as your income goes up. So making sure that this all works smoothly and that children aren't hurt here by losing vaccine coverage, we're going to have to be very agile, very, very smart about that. Another important thing that we have to do right in the next 5 years.
And so come 2020, what are your hopes and aspirations for Gavi? Where would you like Gavi to be by 2020?
Well, by 2020, we'll have rotavirus and pneumococcus out there, and that alone will save about 500,000 lives a year. And even of the kids who survive, the health, the physical and mental development of those kids will be far, far better because they won't have had these diseases making them weaker and blocking their development. So that alone is just a phenomenal thing. We'll have HPV on its way to getting rolled out globally. That won't be completed. The good news would be if there were a few new vaccines, a super effective malaria vaccine, a TB vaccine. We hope that science gives us that challenge, and the Gates Foundation funds a lot of that upstream research that creates these products that have this huge impact. I hope we've managed to get coverage levels up in important countries. I hope the way we handle graduation, we've shown that we know how to do that and handle it well. We will have made the biggest single contribution to the reduction of childhood death and even childhood malnutrition through not having them suffer from these diseases.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.